Hey y'all, welcome to another podcast walk with Brandi and I. And today is Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2025. So I really want to talk about Christmas, obviously. That's a good starter for Christmas Eve. But second of all, something that kind of got my mind working today. I watched a show, another podcaster on YouTube, and he was talking about how people handle the whole Santa Claus dilemma with their kids, and do they, act like Santa's real, or do we tell them Santa's not real, or what's the deal? And in the past I kind of fell on that line of sort of this kind of more modern parenting idea of like, well, I don't want them to think that other things that I say aren't true. So why would I pretend that Santa Claus is real? I'd rather that they trust me. I'd rather they believe what I say. And, that made a lot of sense to me. At the time, I thought, that's a better way to do it. But what this guy was saying that I really love, what he had to say about it was, kids are not on that same kind of level that we are. They're not adults. To them, everything that they imagine, that they think in their minds, that's all real. If they think they see fairies, or they think they see, any sort of fairy tale make-believe kind of thing, to them, it's like it actually happened. They have an imaginary friend. To them, that imaginary friend is real. Why do we feel like we have this need to define these limitations to them? Sort of this post-enlightenment, materialist viewpoint that we have of everything, that we've got to tell them, oh no, that's not real. We need to make sure they know what's real and what isn't. And that's really ridiculous, Now at a certain point, sure, like kids get to a certain point in their development and they're going to just realize that, that's not very realistic, or that's not really, that wouldn't really work. And then they're going to know like something like Santa Claus, like, yeah, that's not really real. And you probably don't even have to tell them at that point. Honestly, they probably figure out for themselves. So, of course you want to track with where they're at. You don't want to try to like force it down their throats of like, Santa's real. But I don't see why we think we have to sort of force this adult mindset on kids. It's really kind of a residual, it's a leftover thing from our Enlightenment influences of our culture, and really like sort of this post-industrial age, materialistic, scientific kind of point of view, as if we're just supposed to like make kids think that way. And that's like, really, when you think about it, it's kind of almost a religious kind of thing to do that. And it doesn't make sense. Why shouldn't we allow them to have their sense of wonder? Why shouldn't we allow them to have their imagination and think things through, and for themselves to come to that point? If they decide, I don't think that's really possible, I don't think that's real, then okay, sure. Like it was a game we played a game together. We played a game, the Santa game. That Santa is this real person, that he goes down our chimney and brings toys to all the good boys and girls and all of that. And from a certain perspective, a certain point of view too, it's like define real. You say he's not real, okay, let's define real. Could we agree that real is the impact that somebody or something has had on an entire culture? A historical impact on society. Is that real? Okay. Well, for you and I, how much of an impact have we had on our entire culture? How much of an impact have we had on human society? How much historical impact? There's no telling how much that's going to be in the future, obviously. But it's safe to say that we're probably not going to be anywhere near as impactful on history and on culture and what people have done as Santa Claus. Even though he's he's an imaginary character, he's not a real person. Nevertheless, the impact on society, the impact on all of our lives is greater than our own personal impact. And when you look at it that way, do you think about it in those terms, it's like, is Santa Claus really real? That's kind of a, that's a sticky question. It's really, we act like we understand the nature of reality more than we really do. We act like we understand the nature of being more than we really do. And maybe kids are onto something with their way of thinking, that what's in their mind and what they imagine, that's just as real as what we see and experience around us with our five senses. So as I was thinking about that today, and I changed my position. I think differently now. I don't really think that we should make such a big emphasis on, oh, you do know that that's not real, right? You do know that that's not true. That's not a real thing. Why? Why should we be like that, Like the case he was making in his podcast was, do we do that about every other little whimsical thing? Do we do that about whatever little games and things they play, imagination, pretend games? Do we try to squelch everything that they think, everything that they believe? If it doesn't line up with what we scientifically know, what we think to be true? And I hope not. I'm sure most people don't. It's just for some reason we have taken specific things, that in our entire culture has decided to have this really strong opinion about, like Santa Claus, playing the Santa Claus game with kids. And we've decided to turn this into like some kind of major issue, when in reality it's just like, man, it's just a thing, it's not any bigger than anything else, like imaginary friends, children playing games and believing that there are fairies, believing that there are elves, whatever, what have you. Or the superheroes are real. Like, they're going to get that when they get older. Like, there's a fundamental misunderstanding of, I'd say, child psychology to think that, oh, if we don't make sure that they know what's real, they're going to they're going to lose it. They're going to be untethered. They're going to have problems. It's like, no, they're imaginative. They're using their mind. And kids are just kind of experiencing the world in a altered state of consciousness compared to the rest of us in a lot of ways. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. So, kind of grounding that to personal experience here a little bit, outside of, just opinions about kids and raising kids, obviously. Putting it on a more personal level, I think we need childlikeness. I think that we need that gets lost. We lose that creativity. We lose that sense of wonder at the world and just kind of coming up with ideas and playing, role playing, and feeling ourselves kind of blur the line between just this physical world that we're all living in and the world of ideas and concepts and fantasy in our minds. And it's a good thing for us. It's a good thing for us to be able to tap into that, to touch the world of openness and creativity. And I think it keeps us from becoming mummified. It keeps us from fossilizing, becoming hardened. It keeps you flexible. It keeps you sort of living more in a sense of joy. And it's like, I think we've actually been very positively impacted by stories about Santa Claus and these different, fun movies and shows and things that we watch that just foster that sense of fantasy, that sense of wonder and imagination. And so much of the story, the symbolism that's in those stories, it really makes you think more like a child. It really makes you think more in a positive way about, giving, altruism, putting in these big adult terms, but, really it's the idea of that doing good really matters. That you can make the world a better place by being good and by doing good. That kindness, it really matters. It really matters to create and to put something good out there into the world and to share it with others. There's a lot of things that come with the theme of Christmas, come with the theme of Christmas stories. And I mean, come on, if there's anything that the whole idea of Santa Claus ever has done, it's definitely to instill that idea that it matters if you're good or bad. It matters if you're doing what's right or what's wrong. It's important. It's important that you're grounded in a love for your family, a love for other people, and that it's about more than yourself. It's important that it is more blessed to give than to receive. And those are the principles of Christmas. Those are the principles and the ideas that we get of Christmas. Obviously, it ultimately comes back to really the origin of everything that we have of the Christmas traditions, which is the birth of Jesus. And that whole story that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever should believe in him would not perish but have eternal life, would have everlasting life. God, even while we were, we didn't know him. We didn't have any connection with him. We didn't have any kind of real affinity with him. In fact, it says that we were basically like his enemies. And yet, while we were enemies of God, he loved us so much that he sent his Son. And that's what Christmas is really ultimately about, is remembering his Son being born of the Virgin Mary and coming into this earth to do good and to bring peace to the earth, bring peace to the people, everyone that he touched, everyone that he had any impact on whatsoever, and everyone that would hear his story, everyone that would know about him, that would come to believe in him. So you see a lot of those same principles, you see a lot of those same ideas in Christmas and encoded in the stories, encoded in the kind of things that we look at and that we think of at Christmas time. And one thing that really comes to me is, we're walking a circle here, Brandy's leading me around in a circle. She's abusing her authority since she's leading this walk now. Speaking of keeping things playful, whimsical. Really, Christmas is about that. It is about staying in touch with that childlikeness, and it's about remembering how much we've been given. We've been given so much good in our life, and we ought to give to others. We ought to find ways of being a blessing because we have been so blessed. And that's really true. There's always an argument to be made of, yeah, but I've had this happen in my life. Yeah, but that's happening this year. I lost my mom. I lost this person, whatever. And, it becomes an excuse for, I have a right to be miserable. I have a right to feel like a miserable person. And it's like, really? Whoa, got lost in the camera there. Okay, I'm back. Really, why is that such a right that we want to fight for, the right to be miserable? Why is that something that we want to have so much as something that we hold on to? I think it's so much better to just say, you know what, despite whatever bad and whatever things are in my life that are not good, I'm not going to live thinking all about the things that are wrong. I'm not going to live thinking about my excuses for being a miserable human being, my excuses for feeling sorry for myself and rejecting this holiday and, trying to empathize with people that have reasons to dislike Christmas or whatever. And so we're just going to do away with this, and we're going to do away with the entire spirit of it. That's just crazy. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. It makes a lot more sense to always find the good, always find what it is that we have to be grateful for. Always be thinking about the ways in which we're blessed, the ways in which things have been done for us and have been given to us that we can't possibly earn, that we can't possibly pay back. And all we can really do is be grateful and be a blessing to others. It really is more blessed to give than to receive. And that's a wisdom that not everybody finds, not everybody has found. You know, a lot of people are still living their life despite these wisdom traditions, despite the stories and the things of Christmas that encapsulate a lot of these ideas. A lot of people still live their life as if it's all about pursuit of their own material gain and reputation, status, you know, all that stuff, where you rank in society, what other people say or think about you, your own, even to a certain extent, like your own self-image, you know, your own, yeah, I'm so bad, look at me, look at what I've accomplished, look what I've done. And that's really not a satisfying way to live life. It's not a way that makes you happy in life. It actually, I think, does more to destroy your happiness than anything else. But when you look at things as a person that is filled with wonder and gratitude, and you're rejoicing and you're finding good in everything, and you're looking for ways to bring good into the lives of others because of your gratitude that the good that's been brought into your life, and that's the true path of joy. That's the true path of meaning and fulfillment. So I think in a lot of ways, and for one thing, it's like, you know, to even bring good into the lives of others, you do need to be creative. You do need to actually be paying attention to what you have in your hands, what you have that you can do, and making observations and seeing what would really be a blessing to them, what would really be a gift that would mean something to them. And so it requires some of that childlikeness just to be a good gift giver. And you know, it's not all about it being a material gift per se, but sometimes it's giving of yourself. Sometimes it's giving your time. Sometimes it's just giving a listening ear. Sometimes it's giving a compliment that is well meant, that it's really, you know, on point, something that they don't often get praised for, that they don't often get recognized for. And that kind of thing can mean so much. Encouragement can be such a gift. It can be such a gift to just show somebody that you love, that you care about them. So anyway, that's really kind of my meditation, my reflection on this Christmas Eve. Hope you all have a blessed Christmas and that you enjoy things. And we love you all, and Merry Christmas.